Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming Last Chance Qualifier. We're playing Pioneer and we got one round in the books and we're about to start round number 2. That's Ross Merriam. I'm Todd Tandy Anderson and we're here at the Apex Gaming home store in Caldwell, Ohio, preparing for our main event, the $20,000 Invitational that will be held tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. That is a modern tournament. This is a Pioneer Last Chance Qualifier. Ross, tell me about the two players who are going to be watching this round and what decks they're playing.
Well, we've got Gage Gorley, or I'm going to go with Gowerly.
I like Gowerly.
Yeah, Gage Gowerly on Izzet Phoenix against Phil Zell on Keruga Fires. Interesting matchup. The Phoenix deck used to being able to play really long games. Probably going to need to be more aggressive in this matchup because the Fires deck can do some really busted things. Once they start putting Atrex onto the battlefield, things go kind of sideways. Note that the Phoenix list is somewhat interesting. We had 5 Phoenix players in the field in this tournament. 2 of them were playing Thing in the Ice main deck. 2 of them were playing Ledger Shredder in the main deck. Gage going for a split, 2 of each.
Okay, look, sometimes you want to do Ledger Shredder to be really aggressive. Sometimes you want to do Thing Nice to be really defensive. And sometimes you're really not sure. Now, here's the question. How many of them are playing the Fairy, the Picklock Prankster?
All of them.
Yeah, that card seems like a very nice addition to the strategy, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that card become ubiquitous across Phoenix lists in the future.
Gage only playing the 2 copies, also has 4 pieces of the puzzle still. Normally you see Picklock over pieces, and has 3 copies of Otherworldly Gaze.
I do like Otherworldly Gaze in these builds that are trying to be much more aggressive with the Phoenix trigger, especially if you're not going to be playing the Temporal Trespass combo. You desperately want to get Phoenix on the table as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think that could be helpful in this matchup. If we can go Turbo Phoenixes on turn 3 or 4, get 2 or 3 of them onto the battlefield, that's something that, if the Fires deck stumbles, might just win the game outright.
Alrighty, well, the players are in the feature match area and ready to go. So let's head on down there and watch Gage Gowerly on Izzet Phoenix versus Phil Zell on Keruga Fires. The Keruga Fires deck is one that our friend Elliot Raff used at the regional championship in Dallas just a few months ago to make top 8. And since then, it's kind of become more popular among the players that really like playing those Fires of Invention style decks.
Yeah, and the Kruger just gives you a little more consistent pop than maybe something like Yorion.
Right, and you get to play 60 cards instead of 80.
Yeah, so you find your key cards, your enigmatic incarnations, and your Fires of Inventions more reliably.
All right, here it comes. Opt. We're going to look at the top of the deck. Is Otherworldly Gaze in addition to Sleight of Hand or in
there's two sleights and 3 gazes.
Okay.
So 13 sort of 1 mana cantrip-ish cards. There's the Picklock Prankster. We're going to do Free the Fae.
Is Free the Fae a sorcery?
No, it is an instant. It's one of the things that the Phoenix players have liked about that card.
Right.
Because in the post-Cyborg games, you often add a lot more counterspells to your deck and you slow down. Free the Fae, you can hold up and still have counterspells available.
All right, so Gowerly going to go for Stomp on the end step, and then likely going to be casting the Bone Crusher Giant here in just a moment. The Picklock Prankster, Free the Fae, is the adventure side of it. Mill 4, put an instant, sorcery, or fairy card from among them into your hand. Finding extra Picklock Prankster's got to be pretty cool sometimes.
Yeah, I also like attacking for 1.
Yeah, it also has Vigilance, so it can play defense nicely later in the game against random creatures like Elves or Prosperous Innkeeper, things like that.
Every little bit of value counts. Yeah, I see a Fiery Impulse. That can answer this Bone Crusher Giant.
Yeah, we do have Spell Mastery, thanks to the Picklock Prankster's mill effect.
This is usually the pieces of the puzzle turn, if you're playing that card.
Here's the Ledgerman, the bird wizard himself.
But we just tapped without red mana. Okay, we have Consider to connive.
All right, connive here, going to go discarding. I think with 2 Fire Impulse, maybe we just pitch 1, and that's the case. So here's a counter on Bird Lawyer. We're going to consider Resolve. We have the Surveil to put 1 in the yard and draw a card. That's a Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
I kind of like Spell Pierce in this matchup, but maybe it's a turn too late because here comes like Fires and all that stuff this turn.
It's the turn where they're on 4 mana that you really want the Spell Pierce, and Gage was not going to have that.
All right, here's Fires of Invention, the powerful 4-mana enchantment. This is, I believe, from Theros Beyond Death, but let's go ahead and get Fires of Invention on the screen. We're going to follow that up with Touch of the Spirit Realm to exile the Bird Lawyer. But Fire's Invention, 4 cost enchantment. This goes digging pretty hard through your deck to play 2 spells a turn for free, and so your lands are essentially free to do things like buy Keruga or activate lands like Castle Vantress or things like that. It's a powerful mana engine because the turn you play it, you can play another spell that costs 4 or less.
And we see Phil Zell do exactly that with Touch of the Spirit Realm. So get to play the fire, set up your mana engine for later turns, and answer the threat on the other side of the battlefield. Things looking pretty good for our Fires player.
We do have another Fire Impulse in hand that can knock off the Bone Crusher Giant, so we're not under too much physical pressure from the attack. Life total slightly off here. There was an attack for 4 and no life gained of yet. Our spotter is moving out of the way as people walk by, but we'll get that update in just a second. Gorly here down to 14. Must be a tough opt. And put it on bottom and draw a random one, okay. Finds the pieces of the puzzle.
But just kind of spinning his wheels here. Hasn't found any Phoenixes.
Phoenixes?
Phoenixes.
Phoenixes?
Yeah, just has a lot more card manipulation in the hand.
Well, that's why I think a lot of the decks have been cutting pieces of the puzzle. When you add Picklock Prankster and Sleight of Hand, you have to make some concessions somewhere. You know, Gowerly's build looks solid, but I think what ends up happening too often in matchups like this, I mean, you're just seeing him draw card draw into card draw into card draw into card draw, not actually able to leverage that into anything real.
Well, there is an Arclight Phoenix for Gowerly. If we can pieces of the puzzle into some interesting cards next turn, maybe we can get something going.
All right, we're going to buy Keruga. We can play that for free and draw 2 cards. That's the baseline. We're going to start with Kenrith Returned King. This is a huge play. Phil Zell getting this 5/5 onto the table. This can give itself haste. It can pump itself. It can slice. It can dice. It can pack your lunch for you, and it can eat it too.
Yeah. Gonna be able to follow this up with Keruga, and we'll see if Phil wants to play around Lightning Axe or not. Currently, he can hold up the green activation of Kenrith, so that Lightning Axe on Kenrith will not kill it. You can put the +1/+1 counter on it in response. Does he go to give his creatures haste to try to get a big attack in here instead?
All right, well, we're going to go Axe in response to the Keruga draw to try to limit the number of cards, but Phil Zell able to easily put a counter on the creature. And Kenrith going to be a force to be reckoned with here. And Gowerly may be doing that just to prevent a card draw, but may have just missed it because there's so many abilities on Kenrith. No haste, though. That's a big deal. No attack for 10.
This is a lethal attack next turn, though, so got to have something good here for Gage.
All right, let's see what we can do.
Probably starts with pieces of the puzzle. Yep. That's another Worldly Gaze. Hall of the Storm Giants.
There's a
Arclight
Phoenix.
Phoenix. What is the third card?
Sleight of hand, I believe.
Slight. Okay. So yeah, only 2 cards to take. Can we play 2 more spells this turn? I think we used most of our 1-mana spells. It was a little awkward sequencing. We kept holding the pieces of the puzzle, playing more spells earlier. If we had pieces first and then held the cheap spells, we could have returned these Phoenixes. But we do have a land, so now we can play a cantrip and try to find some other 1-mana spell. There's a Fiery Impulse, which we can cast. It won't kill anything, but it will be a 3rd spell.
All right, well, we're going to put it on bottom, which means it probably has one rolled up in hand to play.
Okay, another Worldly Gaze. Okay.
All right, and now if we hit another Phoenix, that's going to come back, and we do. Nicely done. But now only 4 toughness worth of blockers here on these 2 Arclight Phoenixes, and Phil Zell is able to give his creatures trample.
It's 3 Arclight Phoenixes.
Oh, excuse me. I thought one was stuck in hand somehow.
No. We discarded it to the Lightning Axe.
Ah, right. Cool. All right, well, an attack for 9 is not close to lethal, so it looks like we're going to say your go.
I mean, it's kind of close. It's like almost 60% of the way there. It's more than halfway. Yeah, it looks like Gage just going to be a sort of turn too slow here.
Gage considering an attack, but I think if 2 Phoenixes attack, we're dead on board to trample plus some buffs. So This is an ill-advised attack for 6. We'll see if Phil Zell can find lethal. Any creature from hand can be granted haste with that Kinrith or Turn King as well. So let's see how Phil Zell wants to sequence this turn. We're going to return Bone Crusher Giant to play, and then we're going to give everything haste and trample, and we're going to attack. Now, Gage might think that the haste is just haste and not haste and trample, and we may go to blocks, but we know this is well more than enough power to win the game. And
15 power coming across, only 2 toughness that can soak up, so Gage going to take 13 and go to -1. Needed to leave 1 more Phoenix back.
Yeah. All right. Well, as these players reach for their sideboard to try to improve the matchup, I'm going to reach over to Ross and ask him, hey, how would you sideboard in this matchup? Let's start with, on the Phoenix side of things, Gage Gorly. How does Phoenix approach the Keruga Flyers matchup from the sideboard?
So Gage's sideboard is 2 copies of Saheeli Sublime Artificer, 2 Crackling Drake, 3 Brotherhood's End, 2 Mystical Dispute, 1 Abrade, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 1 Narset's Reversal, 1 Negate, and 2 Aether Gust. I very much like most of the counter spells. I like the Gusts, I like the Negate, I like the Disdainful Stroke, I even like the Mystical Disputes. Casting them for 3 mana is reasonable. For 1 mana, you hit a lot of the good cards in the deck, notably Enigmatic Incarnation.
Yeah, Keruga also a split blue-green card as well, so he might be able to snag that. Usually they go buy it and play it in the same turn, and that often leaves them unable to pay for a Mystical Dispute.
Yeah, I would also expect some amount of graveyard hate coming in, so I think you've got to change up your threat base to insulate yourself against that. So some number of the Crackling Drakes and the Saheelis is coming in. It'll just depend on how much Gage wants to move away from his game 1 plan. You're definitely going to have to do it somewhat, because of graveyard hate and bringing in the counter spells. But it's just a question of how much you can afford to bring in. So some number of those, potentially all 4 coming in. That would be a pretty big change, but one that you could definitely make a 10-card swap.
All right, on the other side of the table, Phil Zell won game 1 with Keruga Fires, but how do you think he's going to improve his matchup here against the Phoenix deck?
Well, has the Keruga as a companion, so 14 other cards, 2 Temporary Lockdown, that's the 3rd and 4th copies, 3 Mystical Dispute, 2 Deafening Clarion, 2 Slaughter Games, 1 Supreme Verdict, and 1 Coma Cosmos Serpent. Also has, most critically, 3 copies of Layline of the Void. So those will definitely be coming in to hose the Delve spells as well as Arclight Phoenix. Not sure I like anything else. Deafening Clarion doesn't really kill other things.
Yeah, not a fan.
Slaughter Games is really slow. You could bring it. You probably want to bring in your own disputes because there's counter spells coming in. So
yeah, and it's just pretty good sometimes against the sideboard cards like the Saheelis and Crackling Drakes, and then occasionally your opponent will go spell Treasure Cruise and be tapped out, and Mystical Dispute's a nice snipe there.
Yeah, and the 2 main deck temporary lockdowns can definitely come out. Bone Crusher Giant's pretty poor in this matchup, and I'm sure there's some singletons that you don't really like. I see a Thassa Deep Dwelling that could come out.
Alrighty, well, as these players are shuffling up for game number 2, I'd like to take this time to thank our sponsors. Ultimate Guard is our industry leader in TCG supplies, from the katana sleeves that are top-notch, top of the market, to the archive deck box, the giant deck box that can hold your cube and your commander decks. Check out Ultimate Guard products at your local game store, and if they don't have any, say, hey, why don't you go order some, and I'll buy them. I would also like to say thank you to Moxfield. Moxfield is a brand new deck building site. It's very easy to construct decks and then share them with your friends on social media. I've been using it to share mine on my stream as well as through Discord. We're very happy to have Moxfield on board here at the Apex Gaming Series. Also, thank you so much to Wings Etc. Grill and Pub for keeping us fed and happy during our long tournament weekends. We went there last night. We'll probably go again tomorrow.
Okay, pretty typical start for both players. A tap land for Phil Zell and an Otherworldly Gaze on the end step for Gage Gorly. Finds 1 card he likes. Looks like another cantrip that's a consider. Let's see, Phoenix in hand. Do we have a way to discard it? It's one of the issues with Gage's build. Doesn't have anything like Chart a Course to discard proactively. Has to do it through Lightning Axe. And the Keruga Fires deck doesn't really play early creatures to give you targets for those axes.
Right. That's one thing, when I'm building Phoenix in general, is you want to look for some amount of discard outlets, but your deck is extremely potent against creature-based decks because of how good Lightning Axe is. But in this matchup, the Lightning Axe kind of shrinks because it doesn't have a target until turn 4 or 5.
Yeah, he's going to need to find one of his Ledger Shredders, and as we said earlier, only 2 copies in his list, so not going to be as easy to find as it might be in other builds.
All right, here comes pieces of the puzzle. Nice 3-drop here. We're going to look at the top 5. Finds Ether Gust, Opt, guaranteed hits. Storm Giants, Sleight of Hand, and I believe that's a pathway. I can't tell though. Looks. Oh no, that's the thing in the ice. Excuse me. Okay.
So it takes Gust and the cantrip.
All right, your turn.
Okay. Gage has a pretty good setup here. Has a pretty full graveyard if he draws a cruise. Okay, that's a creature that you could axe if you find one.
Yeah, here's Fable the Mirror Breaker. This is going to come down, make it 2/2.
It's like a steam vents off the top for Gorly. He's looking at that Ether Gust like he wants to use it proactively. I think he's got a lot of lands in hand. I think I see Island, Otawara. Not a whole lot proactive going on. And this is the turn where you want to hold up the Gust for a potential Fire's turn or an Enigmatic Incarnation. So hard to, tap out for Arclight Phoenix or tap out to Otawara and bounce the Goblin Shaman and then leave yourself vulnerable, but it might be something that Gage has to do because his hand is relatively weak.
All right, we'll see how he wants to sequence this turn. Four mana at his disposal, was on the play this game.
Yeah, he's really, giving it a good think over. He's caught a tight spot and unsure of how to get him navigate his way out of it.
Mm-hmm. Fable the Mirror Breaker itself isn't that scary, but it's what comes after. And it itself is quite strong, generating mana, letting you pitch extra lands or dead spells to draw into fresh threats. Find things like Fires of Invention that starts to put you in a tough spot. We know that Gage Gorly does have Ether Gust, and that can handle the next big play, or can handle the goblin that's on the table right now.
Opt found a Picklock Prankster, so that's nice. We can hold that up alongside the Gust.
Discard 2 and draw 2. And get a good look at the black card in there.
Probably a Layline of the Void.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's very difficult to cast, and
actually could have this turn with the treasure from the Goblin Shaman, but at this point, Gage's graveyard is pretty big. You do limit yourself against Arclight Phoenix, but it's not going to stop Treasure Cruise.
Is that an Indiana Jones treasure? That's pretty cool looking. I like it.
Ooh, no big play for Phil Zell. Discarded two relatively weak cards. Might have a pretty poor hand here.
Well, it might be very reactive with those mystical disputes and things out of the sideboard, and that may be what he's leaning on here. We'll see how he interacts in the next few turns or how he starts playing threats.
Okay, Free the Fae finds a Treasure Cruise. That's a nice one, and there's an Opt. So we're going to dig even further this turn. Can we find a Lightning Axe to deal with the Goblin Shaman and return this Arclight Phoenix?
All right. We can start with Treasure Cruise. That's a draw 3. If we move to the end step at some point with 8 or more cards in hand, we can actually use that as a discard outlet for Phoenix. I know we have Ether Gust. I know we have Otawara. If we have 8 cards right now, I'm curious if he just goes to discard and pitches the Phoenix. But we're going to go ahead and delve. 4, 5, 6, 7. Thing in the Ice gone. Leaving most of the instants and sorceries. Here's a cruise.
Want to do that not only for Picklock Prankster, but for Spell Mastery.
We do pick up a Lightning Axe, so if we have a land to play, which I see in Otawara, we can go land, Lightning Axe, plus another 1-mana spell, get back Phoenix, attack for 3, and still hold up a counterspell.
And that looks like a pretty solid line to me. That's exactly what you want to be doing in this matchup if you're the Izzet Phoenix player. Apply a little pressure, hold up some counterspells. And then we can, untap with more mana next turn. We've got another pieces of the puzzle that could dig for even more interaction. There might be... Is there another Treasure Cruise in there, too?
Yeah, I think he drew a cruise off the cruise, but not 100%.
Traveling in packs.
All right, Opt is going to be spell number 3, and at the very least, Gorly does have Otawara as land for turn, but kind of wants to save it. Finds another Lightning Axe, so that can unlock a Phoenix later.
Yeah, well, unlock a Phoenix later also gives him an answer to the reflection that's about to enter the battlefield.
Okay, third spell played. Phoenix going to come back. Bang for 3. Does Zell have some way to exile Leyline Binding or some such would be nice. Attack for 3. Here it comes. Binding. Do you want to interact here? We can
That's the
Negate. Okay.
But now the shields are down. So this is a big turn for Phil Zell. Does he have something powerful to do?
Got to capitalize. Up a game, but we really want to cement our position here while our opponent's vulnerable.
Yeah, this is the time to strike. The iron is hot.
I see a lot of lands in hand. Phil Zell has been playing pretty crisply over the last game and a half. He's playing pretty slow here, but I think that's because he just doesn't have a whole lot to do. We're going to start with Enigmatic Incarnation.
Okay.
That's a pretty nice one. We can sack that Fable the Mirror Breaker and go get something from the deck.
Yeah, Reflection is an enchantment on both sides. So do we have 4s?
Doesn't even sacrifice it. Says, no thank you. All
Yeah,
right.
there's not a lot of options to find. There's Thassa Deep Dwelling and Heliod the Radiant Dawn.
Yeah, and those might not even be in the deck anymore.
Yeah, Heliod would have been nice because then you can return the Leyline Binding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know Elliot was big on main deck Shielder the Apocalypse for spots and matchups exactly like this. And I'm not sure if Zell has it, but that could have been a nice one to go get if he did.
You do know there's you don't know there's a Lightning Axe, but we do. So would have had an answer to that, and has an answer to this Reflection. You know, the Reflection is so soft as just a 2/2 against a deck with a ton of red removal.
Be talking smack about my main Reflection.
Found another
You're soft.
Found another Lightning Axe there.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a Phoenix to pitch to it. That would be ideal. I think we found a thing in the ice, so it might be worth getting that down so we can leverage it later on.
Yeah, just start slowly working towards that. I do think you have to get this Reflection off the battlefield. I guess you can Ether Gust the Enigmatic after Phil Zell's next draw step.
Well, if he didn't sacrifice the Reflection now, it's unlikely he's going to sack it next turn, so you can wait till the last second on all this stuff.
Are we going for pieces? That's dangerous.
I agree. But maybe that negate was the only piece of protection. But here's 5 cards coming off the top, one of which is a Phoenix. We're going to get Consider
and Cruise.
and Treasure Cruise. We can still play one more card and get back the other Arclight Phoenix, but that is going to leave Phil Zell with a big untap with Enigmatic Incarnation in play.
Does Gorly even have another land here?
I think what I thought was Thing in the Ice is a blue-red pathway. But I'm not sure. I thought the Thing in the Ice was a pathway earlier, so...
This is very aggressive going for the pieces on that turn.
That's a beautiful Arclight Phoenix right there. Some storms never blow over. All right, there is one of those in the graveyard, and we played 2 spells. Let's see. All right, it was a pathway, so we're going to go ahead and play that, and we'll see what Gorly wants to do otherwise. We have Lightning Axe, which we can use to kill the Reflection, but we can save that for later. We're going to go for a Consider. Another Phoenix on top would be ideal, but we don't. We drew it. Unfortunate. Well, now we can axe and discard it. This is perfect, actually.
Okay. Yeah, that'll work.
Then we're threatening 2 9-point attacks.
You know, I think this line, you know, it looks very aggressive, and it is, but it's a result of Gorly sensing weakness out of Phil Zell.
Yeah, just not having a whole lot to interact with you. But here is something that costs 2. We're going to Touch of the Spirit Realm, blinking out our own Fable the Mirror Breaker. Let's get Touch of the Spirit Realm on the screen, because this is a 3 cost, kind of like a Banishing Light or Oblivion Ring for those of you who are familiar with those cards. But it does have a channel effect where if you channel it, it blinks the thing instead. You can do that on your opponent's stuff to give you some reprieve, but you can also do it on your own stuff like Keruga to get an extra effect.
Yeah, so that'll stick around with Zell at 17. I think this is a send everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Here comes Nanya.
Thunder Chickens attack.
I like that. I like Thunder Chickens.
Right.
Bark,
Well,
bark.
another big turn for Phil Zell, and he's going to get, you know, the second chapter of Fable, because first chapter happens when it enters on the end step. Now we'll get second chapter at the beginning of the main phase. Ooh, let's remember that.
Yeah, can't miss that one. All right, Director. He's about to miss it. I'm going to preemptively call you in. Go get him. The
Uh,
Fable Trigger, Chapter 2. It's impossible to miss.
yeah, it is a turn-based action. Ooh, so that's why we didn't sacrifice it last turn. We had the Heliod in hand.
Ah. All right. Choose to discard nothing. So we're going to resolve the Heliod. This is going to get back Leyline Binding. But we did tap a bunch of white to cast it. Do we have another one in hand? We do. Here's Temple Garden.
And that's huge. We could Leyline Binding and then turn that into an Atraxa.
Yeah, while the Leyline Binding itself isn't that big of a deal, the ability of it to be sacrificed to that enigmatic incarnation will allow you to go get a 7-drop. This is kind of like a mini combo inside of the Keruga Fires deck. Enigmatic Incarnation is quite strong, but gets super juiced with Leyline Binding. Here comes an attack. We're going to get a treasure. During the instep, let's see what Filzel goes to get. Could be Dragonlord Atarka, Trax Grand Unifier. A couple other possibles.
And
I know there's a legendary slug that I get sometimes. I can't remember the name of it. Toxrill, that's right.
getting the Atraxa can be potentially dangerous. If you don't find anything good, any red removal spell on an Arclight Phoenix after blocks will force through lethal because you're at 6.
Yeah, and I see an axe in hand. Let's see if we see it. And here is Titan of Industry.
Okay, playing it safe.
Is going to grant a reach creature and some life, so it's going to put us away from lethal. Curious what the other chosen mode is, because we can go 4/4 gain 5 life, but we can also go gain 5 life and put a shield counter on the Titan.
Yeah, I like this line. There's plenty of 7-drops in Filzel's deck to, work in various different scenarios, and we have time to get the Atraxa later.
Okay, up to 11 now, I believe. Gain 5.
So now the Ether Gust can remove the blocker. Is that the other Phoenix? Can we go Gust, Hardcast Phoenix, attack for 12?
We can. Let's see if Gage Gowerly sees the line. We can also go Axe the...
He's checking if the 4/4,
has reach, and it doesn't. So here's Gust on the Titan of Industry. Do you want to put it top or bottom? And also, Filzel does have 2 mana up, so he could have another blink effect from Touch of the Spirit Realm. Maybe some cheaty face sideboard card that allows him to interact for just 2 mana.
I could have another Leyline Binding here.
All right, here's the Phoenix. 12-point attack incoming. Do you have the answer, Filzel?
Quickly tapping all of our dual lands there, so now the Lightning Axe isn't up. Oh my god, Gage might have stolen this one. With the quad Phoenixes.
Filzel, what you got? He's going to go sacking the treasure. If it's touch, that still buys him a turn. There it is. We're going to blink out the Phoenix. It will come back on the instep, but that's 3 less damage, and Filzel's going to go to 2 life and get the Titan of Industry again next turn.
Okay, but we are on... I guess, yeah, we're on 6 lands, but the Goblin Shaman can attack and create a treasure.
I believe the last card in hand is Bone Crusher Giant. Don't quote me on that. Looks like Red Adventurer.
Oh, and now Gage may be getting punished for leaving up a blue land and not a dual land. Because we could have Lightning Axe this Goblin Shaman and maybe kept Filzel off of the Titan of Industry.
Yeah, a little bit of sloppy tapping there from Gage. Could come back to bite him. We're going to flip this Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Unsure if Phil has a way to survive the next turn. Gaining 5 up to 7, having a blocker. I guess he's still at 1.
We can also sack the Heliod and find something like Tulsimir.
Oh, yeah.
That'll gain 3 and put a Phoenix in the graveyard, force Gage to need 3 spells to bring it back.
All right. Gage should be blocking here. It's not that difficult to get the Phoenixes back, but maybe his hands all land. Here's Titan of Industry. We're going to gain some more life. Maybe make another 4/4. And I like your line, Ross. I like sacrificing that Heliod and going to go get Tulsimir to fight and gain 3 more life.
We're making another... Is that a shield counter?
Guess we put a shield counter on the Reflection of Kiki Jiki. That way it's not going to die on the end step?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Looks like we gained 5 and put a shield counter on the reflection. Do we want to do anything with the incarnation?
Doesn't have a 5-drop worth getting. Must have cut the Tolsmere from the deck, but that makes a little bit of sense. It's not that great in the matchup.
So the 4th Phoenix steals it, and we are headed to a game 3.
All right, as these players are shuffling up here for game 3 and take a look, see if they want to sideboard as they're doing mulligan stuff, I'd like to take this time to thank our marquee sponsor for the Apex Gaming series, TCGplayer.com. TCGplayer.com has all the singles you need for any of the TCGs you play, from Disney's Lorcana to Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Magic the Gathering. TCGplayer.com is your one-stop shop. Their marketplace is ideal for stores, so if you are a local game store looking to get rid of some of your inventory, well, you can post it on tcgplayer.com. You can also check out their sister website if you're interested in competitive content, tcgplayer.com/infinite. Or TCG Player Infinite. I think it's infinite.tcgplayer.com. But TCG Player Infinite is their place for posting up strategy content from big names in the Magic world like Frank Karsten. So make sure to check out TCG Player and Infinite today.
Looks like Gage is going back to the sideboard here for game 3, maybe making some changes on the play versus the draw.
Go on.
I don't know what exactly they would be. Maybe different threats you'd rather have on the draw versus the play. It is a different dynamic, because turn 4 is such a key turn for this Fires deck, as it is for every Fires deck. When you're on the draw, you need to be interacting on your turn 3.
Mm-hmm.
It makes pieces of the puzzle significantly worse. Maybe some of those are coming out. Whereas when you're on the play, turn 3 pieces is much safer. I could see the same thing happening. Maybe he brought in some number of like Saheeli's, and that's hard to now resolve.
Right.
At least hard to resolve until after the dust settles.
Mm-hmm.
And resolving Saheeli after the dust settles, when you've already played all your interaction, it's not going to do nearly as much. So I could see some changes based on play draw there because of how important the fundamental turn of the Fires deck is to both sides of the matchup.
All right, these players are finishing up their sideboarding for game number 3 in mulligans and such. As they're doing that, I'd like to take this time to say thank you to Apex Gaming. They're a game store here in Caldwell, Ohio, and they're putting on the Apex Gaming Invitational Series. Our Invitational is a $20,000 modern event that players have been vying for all year, and that big event is tomorrow. These players in our last chance qualifier right now are currently playing Pioneer in an attempt to qualify for the event. We're in a 5-round last chance qualifier where if you go into the top 4 players at the end of the event after 5 rounds, you punch your ticket to the main event.
Yeah, you're gonna need to get at least 12 match points in order to do that. There is a chance a 3-2 sneaks in depending upon how certain matches go, but to feel comfortable, you're definitely going to want the 4-1 record.
All right, Phil Zell going to be taking a mulligan to 6. Looks like Gage Gowerly kept 7. We'll see if Phil likes his 6-card hand a little bit better than the 7. All right, let's take a peek. Not getting great looks. I do see a Mystical Dispute. That one's nice for helping resolve stuff. An Agent of Treachery seems like it's going to go to the bottom. What do you think about Agent of Treachery in this matchup? It feels pretty bad.
Yeah, not a lot of big things to get, but
there's one thing you can get.
Good.
You can take that one to the bank. Layline of the Void comes down on turn 0 against Gage Gowerly's Izzet Phoenix deck. Let's get Layline of the Void on the screen when we get a moment, because this powerful sideboard card has been in Magic for a long time now, and it is in sideboards across multiple formats as an anti-graveyard measure that starts on turn number 1. This thing gets played for free if it's in your opening hand, and if any card will be put into your opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you exile it instead. This was a powerful tool when I was playing a lot of Legacy back in the 2010s as an answer to things like Dredge, and now we see it in sideboards in Modern as well as Pioneer now as a way to handle these heavy graveyard strategies.
Yeah, incredibly powerful in this matchup. So much so that one of our Phoenix players, Krista Oskopinski, is actually playing 2 copies of Stern Dismissal.
Oh, that's a heater.
It's a bounce spell against creature decks and a way to answer Layline of the Void.
All right, here's a
Okay.
Birdman.
That is the best turn 2 play against Layline. Not only does it not care about the graveyard, it also lets you discard cards that do care about the
Yeah.
graveyard and turn them into something that's more effective.
All right, so no third land for Phil Zell, and it looks like we are maybe in some trouble. The Leyline, the Void, and those types of sideboard cards often encourage you to keep weaker hands because they do have so much virtual card advantage built into them. But Phil Zell going to need some help here. Opt going to put one on bottom. I think Gowerly's about to miss a land drop as well. We're going to play Sleight of Hand, though, digging. That's going to let Ledger Shredder connive as well.
Yeah.
Pitching a cruise makes sense. Counter on. Sleight of hand resolves.
Perfect. Exactly what you want to be doing with the Ledgerman.
All right, Ross, give me your best Birdman.
I don't know what that means.
You know the chirp I did just a second ago?
Yeah, I can't do that.
Really? I feel like you could try. That's why. Give me your best one.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
All right, fine. That's like an old rap thing. There's a rapper called Birdman. He used to do that on the track.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, he actually was working in the 90s. I forgot with who.
Our director just showed me a picture like that was going to help. Like, oh yeah, of course.
Was it Lil Wayne? I was thinking it was Master P. That's what I was thinking of. All right, here's an opt as well. All right, a long turn from Gage Gowerly. That's just a bunch of card draw effects. No third land for Phil Zell. Once again, we're going to go pass him back to Gowerly. Fully in command here. Can play Arclight Phoenix for 4. Attack for 5. Seems like that's the decision. Let's get in there. Let's be aggressive. Phil Zell doesn't have anything to respond with. Desperately looking for land number 3. See if he can find it. I don't think so. Oh, it's a breeding pool. Never mind.
Okay. At least has something going, but 3 mana is usually not a big spot for these decks.
Okay.
Gotta get to 4.
If the third land is tapped, and you still don't do anything,
Well, it's tapped, but it does reduce the cost of the Leyline Binding.
Ooh,
So
good call. Okay, so Ledger Shredder down. It was smaller than the Phoenix, but Ledger Shredder can grow quickly.
yeah.
Another Phoenix here for Gowerly. Maybe gamble a little bit. Play a card draw spell first, looking for a land, but I feel like that's worse than just playing the Phoenix and attacking for 6.
With Zell at 13,
Yeah.
they don't have a land. That's the big thing. Basically, if this Phoenix works, if they don't draw an untapped land, and this Fires deck plays a lot of tap lands. There's
Right.
8 Triomes. I mean,
And a lot of the lands that would enter untapped also deal you 2 damage. So if we can get Phil Zell to 1 after that next attack, then all those lands are tapped forever.
instead goes for a Shredder, probably holding up a counterspell.
That would be my bet.
That's also reasonable.
All right, going back Phil Zell's way, we know he has a Mystical Dispute in hand, so if he finds a land, he might be able to play a 3-drop and then have Mystical Dispute back. Instead, it looks like he draws a brick. We're going to go back to Gage Gowerly.
Keeps pumping his hand like he's hoping for something. Gage, you're ahead.
Yeah.
Just play smart. We can attack for 4 here, hold up all our mana, go for the Phoenix the next turn. This is also reasonable. If we can hold up a counterspell while conniving and attack for 5, even better.
Yeah, we did find a land that looks like a Storm Carved Coast.
Yeah, I also like lands. Once we get to land 7, we can fire up this hall.
Yeah, it's kind of, I was thinking like maybe last turn. Ooh. Here's Mystical Dispute Hardcast on the Arclight Phoenix.
So we get to connive off the Shredder. So let's do that first. This is a very aggressive line. Because there's a Leyline Binding in play. If Phil Zell can find land 4 with Incarnation, this game can turn around very quickly. I can't tell if Gowerly does have counterspells he could have held up. If he doesn't, then being aggressive makes more sense.
Yeah, I saw Spell Pierce, I thought, hanging out in his hand.
Oh, we've been corrected on Gage's last name. It's Gorly.
It's Gorly. Owned. All right, well, here's Fires of Invention. The 4th land for Phil Zell is untapped off the top. We're going to follow that up with Enigmatic Incarnation. Worst case scenario for Gage Gowerly. Tapping out for that Phoenix last turn. Could come back to bite him. I know it's Gorly. My director just gave me a sharp look. I'm so sorry. I forgot.
This is interesting. There's a lot of options. Do we sacrifice one of the 4-mana enchantments and get a 5-drop? maybe there's Tolsimir in the deck now that wasn't there in game 2. Do we sack the Leyline Binding and get a big 7-drop like Titan of Industry or a Traxa Grand Unifier?
Yeah, I mean, if there's an Otawara in hand, attracts a Grand Unifier might not be good enough because it does get bounced before it can block and gain some life. If you get Titan of Industry, it only stems the bleeding, doesn't quite get you ahead. And does give back the Ledger Shredder once the sacrifice resolves.
We're going big.
Okay, let's see what the 7-drop is. We know there's an Agent of Treachery you put on the bottom. Maybe we steal the Birdman. That seems weak. Let's go for one of the more impactful 7s.
Gage did not connive off of that Ledger Shredder, the one with a counter on it.
No, he did not. You're right.
That could be big too. We're going to gain 5 life, or Phil is going to gain 5 life, so that's going to go to 8, and you have a blocker. We do have 6 power in play. If you have removal spell for the blocker like Ether Gust plus a cantrip, then you can double connive and have exactly 8 if you discard 2 spells. Notably, with the shield counter now, we need Gust. 2 burn spells is not going to do it.
Right.
There's Otawara.
There's Otawara. That's going to bounce the Titan of Industry and allow for a big attack. I don't think we can do conniving and bounce it, so I think we're going to be too short of lethal on this swing.
Well, if we have 2 cantrips and a land drop... that's a Gust.
We just have Ether Gust.
Okay.
Okay, top or bottom. Gonna go to the bottom. Now, we're gonna attack for a big chunk here. I believe we have Spell Pierce, maybe another Ether Gust in hand. That means that Phoenix play earlier was pretty loose.
Well, looks like he might not get punished.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't have another spell in hand, he has a Lightning Axe. Ooh, remember your connives.
Oh, this is just going to be lethal if he hits 2 spells. Okay, great.
That's a land, though. Oh, we have Spell Pierce and Lightning Axe. So, yeah, I think we have exactly enough.
Okie dokie.
Wow, got a little loose at the end here, but going to get it for exactly lethal. Gage Gorly takes it down. 2 games to 1.
Yeah, nicely done from Izzet Phoenix side of things. Perhaps a little bit of misstep in bookkeeping, but overall, nicely done.